Good afternoon and welcome for a final time at Industry 4.0 conference stage. It's great to have you around. Thanks for tuning in. It's really excellent. We can round off our day with an excellent presentation. As we said before, we're going to talk about powerful teams that connect IT and OT, which is important in the world of automation. Yes, it's a bit of a problem because traditionally both areas have always been in a way separated from one another. Now, to be clear, now is the time to merge those two domains. Now, whether there are really good solutions to do that, maybe I pass this question on to our final speaker of the day. She is a product manager of labeling technologies at Koenig & Bauer Coding. Emily Ubler, welcome on stage. Hello. Industry 4.0. That's the name of the conference stage. IoT, IoT, digitization, automation, autonomization, many terms and concepts that I'm sure you've all dealt with here at Hannover Messe. And that's something that has been around for a few years now. Now, as you walk across the premises here of Hannover Messe, you've seen that we've made some good progress. Components have become much more inexpensive or easier to operate, to handle and control. As far as interfaces are concerned, we're still working on those, but we got used to those. We also, are hopeful that ChatGPT will help us going forward. Artificial intelligence and many other topics are related to big data, predictive maintenance and automation, the digital twins. So, what I'm saying is, as far as the technologies are concerned, we are on a good trajectory. But then, with that comes also a proviso, namely, I've noticed talking to people throughout the week here that people are still afraid to touch on or to join the bandwagon when it comes to data integrity and security, and how can we merge different teams from operational technology and information technology, and how can I help them to successfully implement their automation projects? I am Emily Ubler. I studied IT and engineering science, and ever since I've been straddling the line of both worlds for quite a few years now. I've worked in labeling technology, and I was also involved in automation projects from different angles, if you will, from different perspectives. And I'm still doing this. Currently, I work for Koenig & Bauer in labeling technology. Koenig & Bauer, some of you may know the company. It's the oldest printing machine maker in the world, more than 200 years of company history already. Now you're wondering, printing 200 years ago? What was printing technology like? Well, if we hadn't had that pioneering spirit at the time, we wouldn't be where we are today. And it's also for that reason that we have embarked on our journey on digital transformation quite a while ago. Not only internally, as far as it refers to our own processes, but also in our customer relationships. We use digital technologies, offer them digital services and products. And I'm still in charge of automation projects, day in, day out. And while I do that, things like this may happen. A customer asks me to simplify and automate a process. So we're doing that. We offer them a solution, an automation solution, nothing out of the ordinary. So sometimes it's straightforward things that are well established in other industries. But then once we're finished and everybody's nodding and are happy, and then say, well, but that sounds like quantum sciences. We're not as far as that yet. So that's what I hear often. Or something I also hear very often, we always talk with the operational experts. This is our home turf. And then occasionally, very rarely, an IT engineer gets involved. And every time an IT engineer asks a question, our faces go blank. I mean, we occasionally nod, and then turns out that we don't really understand what the IT engineer says and asks, and then we're back to square one and are back in our OT world. So what needs to happen? Now, first and foremost, here's a fundamental understanding to understand what value systems we have. So how do OT and IT people behave, what their backgrounds are? OT often refers to process engineering. The guys who, during the COVID pandemic, couldn't work from home, right? You have to work on the shop floor. It's about products. It's about a quantity of products in a certain time frame need to be produced, physically produced, and you have to have manual labor on site, on the shop floor, equipment, machinery, processes. Most of these are not short-term, but long-term. So that's the value world of OT. Now compare that to IT. IT, someone who uses their PCs and connect to your operations from anywhere in the world. I don't know where they're joining us from. This country, other countries, what time zones? IT people have different purpose. Data integrity and data security. They want to make sure that they deliver data or data packages to the right place at the right time. And the technology that IT experts use is usually standardized and, well, somewhat short-lived, you would say. So IT is new work in the sense of it can work from different parts of the world, work from home. So I guess what I'm saying is that these are two different worlds. And until that is the case and remains the case, there's plenty of literature out there that describe the different worlds. People talk about IT-OT convergence. So something is disparate, but it should be merged together. And we all see that there are a few attempts to do that. But still, I think it's important that people with an OT hat and an IT hat should be joining forces and reach out to one another. But no one tells us how that works. Usually when literature describes that, they stop at the practical recommendations, which they don't make. Now, for me, it's interesting. As a product manager in that sector, I'm selling a product. I'm developing a product which really are at the forefront, or if you will, at the interface between OT and IT. Now, obviously, I've been dealing with that in the past, and I cannot drill too deep here, but I am going to share with you a few suggestions of how to help those two teams to collaborate better. And in order to do that, let me give you a background here. Now, what this says is progression, new equals better. Now, does that mean anything? What does it mean? Does it ring a bell, new or better? No, I'll tell you what it means for me. Perhaps we should call this, it's a paradoxical ambivalence. New things are not necessarily better. No, it's not true. Because we have other experiences where that is certainly not the case. But then someone says, making progress, moving ahead, is a positive connotation. Moving forward means things are getting better, right? And here's something to bear in mind. This way of thinking that progress, novelty is always about improvement is only something that people came to think about in the past 1,000 years. Before that, progress was always very individual. In ancient times, individuals had a different take on value added. Your personal progress was not what collective progress is today. Today, we are talking about progress in terms of how can we contribute to society, how can society be advanced, and this is how we understand progress. Now, for those of you who want to read up on it, there's a book by Sarah Spickermann on digital ethics, which actually provides a very good explanation of what I just touched on. Now, imagine we apply this concept to our world, i.e. the merging of OT and IT. OT is what we have. is what is physical, and IT gets injected into OT as something that's progressive in order to improve the processes. So OT is being bombarded with IT. You're no longer playing on a level playing field. Things are out of balance because IT is trying to dominate OT. And here's what my suggestion is. If you want to improve something in your processes, if you want to automate your OT, let's talk about automation just by way of a tagline. Then you would want to have people from OT that is subject to improvement, but also IT experts should be on your interdisciplinary team, and they should jointly think about improving your IT equipment, but rather think about process, think about your company, think about your workforce and what added value can be created, where the real net output could be. What is progress for your organization? Now, once you've understood that, what progress means for your organization, you will be striking maybe a different balance, because you end up with an interdisciplinary team, OT experts, IT experts together, who know what they're headed, where they're headed. They're pulling along together. I gave you that earlier example of IT experts usually talking and no one understands what IT guys are saying. The same is true the other way around. So, second specific approach, try to visualize your process. Right? There can always be a language barrier. IT and OT people speak in different languages, but make it visual. Now, that example is taken from my industry, and it's also my suggestion. Try to use as many pictures and images as you possibly can. Let visuals speak for you. People may say the 1200 S7 and the PN coupler, no good. People who are not experts in your technical terminology, they don't understand, they don't get involved in your debate, they don't contribute, and they're not going to be helpful in bringing about a solution. Or maybe you get a solution, but that's not good, and people have not invested enough talk. But imagine you see that in front of you and said, oh, what is this little box on the bottom right doing exactly? What do we need it for? So that gives you a different commonality to speak about. Okay, there's one thing I need to skip, but I'll come back to that in a moment. So imagine we're there. We have a collaborative team, they work on the same goal, they talk with each other in the same language, but still something may happen. An example from my practical work, people ask us, what about production data, and how far those production data may be error-prone, because someone needs to enter them manually during the manufacturing process, and we want to reduce that error propensity. And we say, that's no problem. Just use a single source of truth. What have you got? Give a production system somewhere, an ERP system that allows us to extract your data, and then we just automate that, and then everything's fine. And no manual data input errors may occur, no longer. Now, everyone rejected that when we proposed it, and we were surprised why people rejected our proposal, until I found out why they have been so reticent. Well, the reason being, remember what I said before, they have different value systems. What do OT people want to do? Quality, volume, time, produce physical units. Now, what do you do when you don't have any data anymore? Sunday night, perhaps, or during the night shift. IT people are gone, so you cannot work. The OT person can't do their job. Now, we want to avoid that. And that's something that makes people anxious. I cannot do my job anymore. And there again, let's circle back to what I said before. New means always better. An IT process will improve your processes. Everything will be fine. But mind you, IT is error-prone as well. They are making mistakes as well. Different types of mistakes, but they do. So right from the outset, you want to talk about this. and be very open and transparent about potential issues and glitches that may occur and what it means for us. That's what we call a risk analysis. And what's our fallback solution? What's our fallback plan if that happens? Plan B. And indeed, very often, we see that we can always go back to a standalone manual data input process if we need to. Many other Plan B solutions are out there. But at the top, talk about it, what your fallback solution is. And that, in fact, increases the acceptance for those processes within your team. And now I'm coming back to this. This may be important for suppliers or consultants. This is why I'd like to end up with it, with that notion. I have a few notes here and some examples. How do we talk about our problems and our programs? Now, this is going to be boring because I'm reading something out. The dashboard helps you to improve performance and security in production. Full stop. Well, could you follow that? Right? Okay, that's what everyone says. Now, but when you're saying this, all right, our machine data or the machine condition is visualized at the computer on your screen. You know the throughput time, you see the throughput times, you see your production volumes, you see fault and downtime information. You can reference to the owner's manual, or it gives you some tips and tricks, or you can send a service ticket to your vendor where all machine data and the final log file is already included in your protocol, rather than having a manual process. So, see, we're talking about something else. So, what happens in our deal scenario? It's for you to decide. Is that a value-added activity? Is that useful for your job? And perhaps while doing this, you come up with a new idea. When you're thinking about your process, maybe something else comes up. But here's another example. Automation reduces damage and downtime related to fault and delays. Well, that's a general phrase, a hollow phrase, is it not? Just earlier we had an example. What happens if you're saying, well, why don't I get my data from the data repository where they have been entered before? So when I order a part from the ERP system and I bring it automatically to the point of use. So you eliminate manual data input, and then once they are in the system, you can revisit them later. It's much more specific. All right, this has taken me to the end of my short presentation, and I hope you, obviously we had limited time, but I hope you found it somewhat helpful, some helpful practical suggestions. And I have 3.5 minutes left on my clock here, so I'll be really happy to take your questions now, but not only questions, comments as well. So please fire. Emily Übler, thank you so much. Can we have a round of applause for her? That's incredible. So that was item 65 of our conference program throughout those 5 days. So that was a lot of content. But as we're wrapping up, I found this very interactive. So please, can we have your questions from the audience?
Don't hesitate to ask any questions.
Do not hesitate, please. So everyone can join the debate. Everyone's been happy. Well, that's great. That's a positive thing to see here. Now, the last speaker on stage always get a little hug from me.